What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Two Wheeled Rider YouTube channel. My name is Mario Orsini, and since I just flipped over 50,000 miles on my 2016 KTM 1290 Super Adventure, I thought I would share my ownership experience over the last nearly 5 years. I've got my notebook on the table in front of me here. I'm going to run down through all the modifications, upgrades I've made to the bike along the way, as well as all the maintenance we've had to perform. Maybe not every little thing, but you know, scheduled maintenance, unscheduled maintenance, those sorts of things, as well as any recalls, tech bulletins, issues I've had with the bike, and then what's next with the bike. So I bought the bike September 15th, 2016, so just short of 5 years at this point, and I just flipped over 50,176 miles on this latest trip my sister and I took out to Utah and back. So let's go down through the list of modifications I've made first. So when I first bought the bike, I put a top case, just a factory top case and backrest on it. It came with the saddlebags on my model, at least the US model came with saddlebags from the factory. I also picked up the KTM Power Parts bag liners for it at that point. At a little less than 4,000 miles, I went ahead and put on the KTM Power Parts skid plate. Right around that time, I also upgraded the front headlight to the Cyclops LED headlight kit. We also did IMS ADV1 foot pegs on the bike, as well as the Rottweiler Evap Delete kit. More on that later. At about 9,100 miles, I ordered the KTM Power Parts tank bag, and I will link as many of the videos I've done on this down in the description below if you want to check those out. I also did a set of MFW highway pegs for the bike since I do a lot of touring on it. At the first major service interval, which for me was right around 17,000 miles since I was getting ready for a trip to head out to Alaska, I did the Rottweiler Stage 3 SAS Delete kit, obviously for off-road purposes only. I also did the Rottweiler Stage 3 air intake kit. I did use 2 velocity stacks on mine and did the Rottweiler fuel dongles as well as the O2 block-off plates on mine. Again, off-road use only. A couple other minor things I've done to the bike. I did get the Rottweiler bar and mirror adapters, and I did the CRG bar and mirrors on the bike. Also put a Puig windscreen, a little bit taller windscreen on it, a little bit cleaner looking windscreen on it, and I did a larger foot for the side stand. Other than that, which is a decent amount of modifications, everything else on the bike is stock. So let's get into the maintenance part of it next. What have I had to do to it to keep the bike going for these 50,000 miles? So aside from regular things like oil filter changes, spark plugs at the big service interval, checking the valves, you know, checking chain tension, spoke tension, those sorts of things, all of your regularly scheduled maintenance, I haven't really had to go outside of regular scheduled maintenance. Everything's been as it should be according to the book, and had no major issues with maintenance, having to do anything outside of that. I will say I did put a new OEM chain and sprockets on it at about 18,000 miles. They weren't worn out at that point, but I was getting ready to take off on about a 10,000 mile trip to Alaska. So as preventative maintenance, went ahead and put a new chain and sprockets on. Also did new chain guides after I got home. Always do the chain guides when you're doing the sprockets and chain, because you're gonna end up having to do them anyway. I did have to put a new chain and sprockets on it again. Sprockets looked okay. Chain was starting to kink a little bit, but I got 26,000 miles out of the OEM chain, or you know, a new OEM chain on it this last go around. So as long as you keep those things clean and you keep them proper tension, they're gonna last quite a while. When it comes to valve checks, I didn't have to do anything at the first service interval. At the second, with about 33,000 miles on the bike, I did have to re-shim on the rear cylinder, the 2 intake valves. They had gotten a little tight on it, but that was about it. Other than I also did put new cam chain tensioners in at that point. One of them just didn't want to engage right anymore. So again, kind of cheap preventative maintenance, went ahead and put in 2 new cam chain tensioners at that point in time. So recalls, tech bulletins, issues with the bike. So early on, there was I believe it was a tech bulletin on it. The ABS wire that runs around the battery box could get snagged on the battery box. That was a zip tie to fix that, so no major issue there. Did have a software update on it done at about 18,000 miles. KTM had pushed out some new software. There was a tank recall. Mine was one of the ones affected. We were able to fix it, and it probably still would have held to this day, but since KTM was going to send me a brand new tank, and what it was, they updated the grommet down at the bottom of the tank, so right about where your crotch is, that was prone to leak on some models. I got a brand new tank out of it. They used a much bigger grommet in it, had no issues. That was replaced at 33,000 miles. The only issue I've had with the bike, which is well documented on this channel, my fuel pump died on a trip at about 39,000 miles. I've done videos on that, how you can get an aftermarket quantum fuel pump. It's very simple to change. It's like 4 bolts to pull it out. In the case of my bike, because it's got the wider tank, you do have to pull the crash bar off the one side, so you got a few additional bolts. I carry a spare one in my top case now, and knock wood, haven't had any issues since then. So it's about $120 for the full kit with filters. I do plan on, at the next large service interval, which I have coming up soon, I'm going to go ahead and put new filters in the fuel pump at that point, so hopefully it prolongs the life of it a little bit more. So something else I want to talk about was the tires I run on it. Since I predominantly tour on mine, I've just been running the Continental Trail Attack 2s for most every trip I've taken. They've averaged, and I did a lot of two-up riding, they've averaged a little over 7,000 miles per set that I've put on. Sometimes I change them out a little bit early, but about 7,000 miles. The longest I've gotten out of them is almost 9,000 miles, and the shortest was about 5,900 miles on that trip up to Alaska. The roads up there were just much rougher and tore the tires apart quicker than I was expecting. So I had to get tires not midway, but part of the way through the trip. I have run the Bridgestone Battle Axe AX41s on it, riding the BDR. And on this most recent trip out to Utah, I ran the Continental TKC 70s. I've got 5,400 miles on those tires. They're still wearing pretty well. I like them, but I'll probably, since I've got a set of Trail Attacks out in the garage with like 500 miles on them, they'll go back on next. So what's next for the bike? Well, at the 5-year mark, KTM recommends replacing the tubeless system, which is a gasket and seal in the front and rear wheels of the bike. I do have those out in the garage. When I go to change the tires this next go round, I will put those in. So look for a back in the garage video on that. I'm sure that's going to be a blast to do. I am going to rebuild the front forks this winter. I was going to do it last winter, just ran out of time. I want new oil, seals, bushings, put in those. And we're also going to service the rear shock. I know it's not serviceable, but we have found a method, and we'll probably show a little bit of that on the channel. I say we, the guy I'm working with on it, we've run this past WP Suspensions. They agree that this is a good method to service the shock and get some fresh oil in it, so we're definitely going to be doing that. And aside from that, I've got the big service interval coming up this winter. I'll probably get a few more rides out of it. I think it's within the next 2,000 miles. So I'll be checking the valves, and I'll let you guys know if they're out of spec, new plugs, oil, all those sorts of things. So what's next for the bike? Now that I've got 50,000 miles on it, I think it's time to just keep riding it and see if I can get it to 100,000 miles, with all the original components and stuff in it. I've had an absolute blast riding the bike. I don't even know how many states I've been to on it, but I've not all of them, but many of them. I've been to 49, throughout, my touring history, but I've been to a lot of them on the Super Adventure. Absolutely love the bike. You guys will see in the upcoming video series, I actually took it off-road out in Moab, which is why I went with a little more, aggressive tire than a 90-10. I love the thing. KTM doesn't really make anything right now that compares to it, because I love that big oversized tank. I do like the electronic suspension on it. I love that I got spoked rims. Until they come out with something else that rivals it, I'm probably just going to keep riding it. So absolutely love it. I mean, you guys can make fun of the fuel pump, but to me, that was kind of a minor thing. Did it suck at the time? Damn right it did. It happened on a Saturday, and I lost a couple of days riding. But aside from that, bike's been great. Yep, it's got a couple of recalls on it, but it never kept me down from riding except for that fuel pump issue. And like I said, got a spare one in my top case now. So I've absolutely loved it. Some of my friends have since bought 1290s, whether they're R models, S models, those sorts of things. I love it, and I was a little worried about buying a KTM, having come off Japanese bikes, mainly Japanese bikes before that, aside from a Ducati or two mixed in there. But it's been awesome. Yeah, the service intervals are a little bit closer than they are on some of the Japanese bikes, and it looks like you have to disassemble half the bike to work on it, but it's actually pretty easy to work on. So anyway, that's been my experience. It's not going anywhere. I'm gonna keep riding the hell out of it. Buddy and I were talking the other day, so what do you do when you get to 100,000? I was like, do a leak down test, and if it needs rebuilt, we'll probably just rebuild the motor and keep riding it. So anyway, guys, that is my experience with a 2016 KTM 1290 Super Adventure for the first 50,000 miles. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, considering that subscribe button, because if you like motorcycles, well, this is the place to be. If you have any questions about anything, maybe something I didn't go over, though I went down through my service history and tried to grab everything, let me know down in the comments section below. And as always, I'll talk to you again soon.